Okay, so here are my expanded thoughts on The Nun. Spoilers. Three, two, one. Okay, so basically, there is like this craziness going on in this monastery. All right, so what happens is the Vatican gets word of this, and they summons this one guy named Father Burke. He's played by Damien Bashir. I think that's how you say his name. And so they tell him, they're like, look, dude, you have got to go and you've got to find out what this evil is. What happens is there's a nun who lassos a rope around her neck, and she jumps out a window and it snaps her, and it was pretty hardcore. And the movie opens up where these two nuns are walking down a hallway, and one of them has a key, and they unlock this door, and then this door opens up, and then like the first jump scare of the movie happens. This one nun is like, says something, and then she's like pulled into this thing, and the other nun runs and then puts a noose around her neck and jumps out a window and snaps her neck. So that's like the big opening scene. And so then the Vatican like gets this priest over there, Father Burke, like I said earlier, and they tell him, look, you got to go investigate this and find out what's going on. And so then they said, we're going to pair you up with someone. So they give Sister Irene, which is played by Thaisa Vermiga. Why is that so hard to say? And anyway, she is the younger sister of Vera Farmiga, who plays one of the Warrens, Lorraine Warren, in all the other The Conjuring and The Conjuring 2. So in real life, this is her younger sister, which looks a lot like, I mean, they're like spit and image. So like you would think Vera Farmiga looks like Thaisa Farmiga if they were like, 20 years earlier, which is interesting about the movie because it takes place in 1952, and then all the stuff with the Warrens takes place about 20 years later, 25 years later. So you're kind of like, oh, okay, she looks young and now she looks old. Could this be? Well, anyway, so let me keep going on with the story. So they get when the nun is hanging there, this guy who delivers food. His name is Frenchie, the character name. His name is Jonas Bloquet, and he sees the nun hanging there, and he freaks out, and he cuts her down, and he puts her in a meat cooler, and they tell the authorities, and they get back to the Vatican and they dispatch them. So now the two characters are now three. So you've got Sister Irene, you've got Frenchie, and you've got Father Burke. These are the three characters that the whole movie revolves around. And then there's a bunch of nuns that come in here and there that are always like, you must pray, and they start speaking in Latin, all this Latin stuff. And it's kind of freaky because no one really uses Latin anymore. But anyway, make a long story short, what happens, you find out that there is a gateway to hell underneath this castle. And during the Crusades, a bunch of knights came in and they beat back Satan by taking some blood from Jesus Christ that's in this little glass vial, and they dropped it on him, and it forced him to go back into the hole, and they dropped it on the hole, and it sealed the hole. And then the nuns stay there, and all they do is pray all the time in this monastery. They just rock and they pray and they pray and they pray to keep Satan from coming out of the hole. Well, it doesn't last forever. Obviously you need a little bit more blood from Jesus Christ to keep the hole closed, and nobody knows where the blood is. Well, the two nuns that had the key to the one door were going to unlock this thing to get the blood of Jesus and throw it on there. But the nun demon, which is basically, she's like Satan, but she took the form of a nun so she could walk around the hallways disguised as a nun. But that doesn't really fly. That's the one plot hole in the movie that I'm kind of like, really? Like, she had to disguise herself as a nun, even though she looks like demonic with the face and everything like you see in the previews. It's like why go to that length to masquerade, just show up as Satan and start, doing all your thing. But again, I regress. This is all about the nun, and it's tying into The Conjuring 2 with the nun that was in that one. So that's the big plot hole for me, is just like me. But it didn't totally take me out of the movie. And so basically, they figure out along the way that they need to get the key, unlock the door, put the blood of Jesus Christ in there and send the nun back to hell. There's some really good scenes in this movie, especially one where Father Burke gets thrown by demons into like a grave with a pine box. The pine box shuts, and then he's stuck in there, and the next thing you know, it's covered. But like in the old days, when people would get into accidents and they would go into comas, they had this thing where they had strings that would go all the way down, attached to bells by the stones, the headstones. And if you were alive, you could ring the bell and they would dig you back up, like if you came out of the coma and you weren't really dead. And so there's a lot of intense scenes. There was some foreshadowing where some bells in the graveyard were ringing, and then the father gets trapped in and buried alive, and he's ringing, and Sister Irene's having to dig him out, and it's a really intense scene. And then the demons come as she's almost there to dig him out. The demons' hands start coming through the dirt, and they're pulling him down. It's very poltergeist-ish. If that's a word, I don't think that's a word, but it's very much like Poltergeist. And so, you know, there's a lot of things that they do in this movie that steal from other films. You know, the father has a fear about this other demon that or possession, that he got the devil out of this possession of this little boy, so this little boy haunts him and all this kind of stuff. So it's like, look, The Exorcist set the bar on all these movies. Any of these possession movies, they all kind of copy the same thing, you know, but it's, you know, like anytime like a little boy talks that's possessed by the devil, it's got a voice of the devil, you know, and same thing, there's a lot of growling, there's a lot of that kind of stuff. So, you know, it's, The Exorcist set the bar pretty high. So every other movie kind of just rips off and steals from it. There were scenes in this movie, which is really weird. I'm going to check and see what it was shot with. I don't know if it was shot with an Alexa or if it was shot with an Arri digital camera. But there was a lot of scenes that looked very digital, almost BBC Benny Hill kind of footage. I don't know what they were shooting with, what the frame rate was, but some of it looked a little weird. A lot of fog throughout the whole movie, which is expected because when you shoot with digital, you kind of have to fog everything up to give it like some good depth, where you don't really have to do that with 35mm film. For the most part, I enjoyed the film. I give it a 6 or a 7 out of 10 because some of the CGI scenes where the nun is, so the nun would be like a practical effect, and then when it grabbed you or something, it would do this CGI stuff, and it just kind of pulls me out of it. If you've seen any of my other videos, I'm not a big fan of CGI that's not really seamlessly blended into the films. And this one kind of falls short. Anytime it flips to CGI and it's a computer animated thing, it just doesn't trick my eye. It takes me out of it. I love practical effects. And there were some things in this movie that I thought they probably could have pulled off practically, but they didn't. And, you know, but we live in a society now where a lot of the fan base that's growing up now are used to video games. They've been brainwashed with reality TV, so they're used to low production value. And so, you know, these big feature films are taking shortcuts with CGI, or they may contract out some CGI to different effects houses, and one effects house may not be on par with another one. And so you get kind of this non-seamless blend of CGI. So if there's one thing I could say is that it just, some of it was, but look, this movie is making bank at the box office, okay? So it pulled in $5 million on Thursday night, $22 million on Friday night. I haven't seen the stats. It's Sunday. I saw the movie on Friday night. I haven't seen any of the stats, but this movie's going to make a ton of money. It's going to make its budget back tenfold. The studio's going to be happy. Everybody's going to be happy. James Wan's going to be happy. And the writer of this film, just for trivia there, he's also writing was a writer on the pilot for Swamp Thing, which is coming out. The DC Cinematic Universe is going to have their own app, and the writer of the pilot for Swamp Thing is also wrote this film. So my hat's off to these guys. for doing a good job. It's going to make a ton of money. Is it one that I'm going to buy or stream later on? Probably not. But it ties in really well with all the other the Warren Chronicle movies, especially the first one, because the beginning of this movie, The Nun, and the end, you'll see it. Hell, I'll spoil it. So Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga are in the beginning, and they're in the end, and in walks and sits down Lily Taylor from The Conjuring, because they're giving that lecture at the school. So from the first Conjuring, and when she's like, "Can you help me?" So they bookend this with the Warrens on each end, so it really ties in nicely to the rest of the films. So yeah, I mean, if you like the Conjuring series, you're gonna love this. I did put a lot of spoilers in here, but I did leave out, there's about 6 jump scares. I only talked maybe about one, if that. So you're going to get scared, you're going to jump, and you'll like this film if you've liked the series. So if you like this video and you like this review, give me a like, give me a share on social media, and subscribe to the channel, and check out my clean review if you want for this film as well. And check out some of my other reviews, and leave comments below and let me know what you want me to review next. I'm going to be doing some retro reviews soon, and so be looking for that.